My name is Sally Tonkin. I'm a social work major, and this is my story. When I was 12 years old, my parents got divorced, and it was not an easy divorce. It was full of drugs and alcohol and infidelity. I remember watching my dad be carried out of the house after a suicide attempt. There was a lot of yelling and throwing things. It was a really stressful time for my small 12-year-old mind. After that year, I was no longer a child. I had the worldview of an adult, pessimistic, and just overall, I had seen too much at that point. And so after things reached a peak in the divorce and everything was kind of said and it was out in the open, my dad left to learn how to be a trucker. And so it was just me and my mom for several months afterwards. And those months were really quiet. It was just me going to school, trying to feed myself with whatever food was left in the fridge at the time, and it wasn't good. At the time we were living in Texas, and we had moved there when I was 4 from Alaska, where I was born. My mom decided that it was time to move back to Alaska to our family, and so we did, just me and her. And I enrolled in public school for 7th grade. Like I said, I just had a really pessimistic view of the world, and I was a bully to other kids in my grade. I was breaking rules and I was doing things wrong. I just wasn't a good kid. I was taking out a lot of my anger on just everything around me, and I wasn't telling anybody what I was actually feeling because I didn't really know what I was feeling. Therapy was never a word that was mentioned, and we just didn't really talk about it. During that time, I felt really alone because my mom was having a lot of struggles with alcoholism and things like that. And when she drinks, she gets kind of mean. So there was a lot of abuse just in the home with us two, directed towards me, and I didn't know how to say anything about it. And so I just endured it and took it out on people at school. Of course, as is the case with most students who are breaking rules, I got suspended. And that first suspension in school kind of spoke to my mom, and she decided to pull me out of that school and put me in the only other school available on the island in Alaska. And that was this tiny little school under some church stairs in a random church on the island with 8 other kids. And all day we would just sing Jesus songs, and I, as a proud 12-year-old atheist, did not enjoy that. It just wasn't good. The other kid in the school that was my age was really mean to me. And so nothing really got better, but the difference was I was in a safe environment with adults who were safe. And in public school, I guess that was the same case, but the adults are kind of more focused on their job and teaching than the students that they're teaching. That was my experience, at least, in public school. And so when I went to this little school, I was safe for the first time, and I was cherished, and I could see what a stable adult looked like, and that was really a treat. But I didn't like the school when I was there. I felt just kind of restricted, and I didn't like it. I liked being the bad girl in public school, but there I was. So I woke up every morning and I went to school, and that was that. I wasn't happy. I wasn't mad or anything, but it was just kind of blasé, you know? And so that was about 3/4 of the way through 7th grade, and I stayed from that point until 8th grade graduation. But about spring break of 8th grade, we went to visit this academy in Washington, and I wasn't really an Adventist or a Christian at the time. I was just kind of there in this school because I was told to be. And that was kind of the whole story regarding my own spirituality. It was hard to see anything positive regarding any higher power after what I had seen in Texas during my parents' divorce. So we went down to visit this academy, and as I was preparing to pick a high school, because there were 2 options on the island, this one really spoke to me. First of all, because I could get away from my circumstances and the abuse that was happening in my home, and that was a pretty good deal, no matter which way you look at it. And so, of course, living on my mother's single-parent hairdresser income on a very expensive island in Alaska, academy just wasn't really an option. So I quickly dropped it. And then one day, this pastor from the academy came to town because he heard there were 2 of us, 2 8th graders, who were considering academy. He heard we were there, and he was busy. His job was to recruit for academy. So he came to the island, and he said a lot of things to my mom over a lunch. I don't know, I wasn't there. But by the end of the day, my mother decided that I would go to academy and that she would pay for it somehow. And so I was sent to academy, and it was really tough. Academy was never a thing that was talked about in my family. Like, we didn't really know what it was or the culture. All I knew is that I was getting away from home, and I realized how much I loved my home, even like after I left. After a bit of time, I found my people and I found my friends. And then after a bit more time, I found really safe mentors who spoke to me openly and let me be safe and let me be open about the things I had experienced. I found respect, and I found honesty from safe adults who would hold me accountable and also show me that there was a better way to living. And by my senior year of academy, I got baptized into the Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm still the only Adventist in my family, but I'm pretty open about my faith. At my baptism, my entire nuclear family showed up and watched it happen, and I'm not sure what they were thinking. I don't know if they knew what they were thinking. They were in a church watching their granddaughter/daughter get baptized, and it was a really interesting day, but it was a day that one of the first days that I was able to make my own decision about how I wanted my life to look. At the end of my senior year of academy, I asked the financial person at my school if I could see the ledger, like the itemized bill of how the tuition was paid. And if you remember, at the beginning of my story or halfway through, it was decided that my mom would pay the tuition. But she went through a lot of struggles with her substance abuse and mental health and her job, and so that actually didn't end up happening. Out of $77,000, my mom paid about $8,000 of that amount of money for 4 years of tuition, and the rest was just miracle after miracle. And I am so firm on this, in that the way God speaks to me, showing me that he's real and showing me his proof, is financially through money. And my tuition in college is really the same story. It's just miracle after miracle. I was able to pay for college all on my own with loans and grants and figuring it out myself. And it worked and it happened. I am still going to Union as a student, but I'm only taking 1 class, and I'm actually working full-time as a social worker for the Ponca tribe of Nebraska, and I love my job. But God continues to speak to me financially, and I don't know, that's just the avenue that I think he's chosen to use with me, because it's just so obvious and clear that God is a God of love and provision, and he just provides for me. From that day when my parents' divorce reached a peak to the day when I was suspended in the 7th grade to the day I flew away from the island I had known as my only home ever, even when I lived in Texas, to go to some random academy in Washington where I knew absolutely no one, to the time when I looked at the ledger after 4 years of academy, and to the time when I got my acceptance letter from Union College that had numbers on it that I thought I could actually afford, and I could with the help of God. There is absolutely no way I can doubt God, and yet I still do. And so what I'm learning now is that every single day I have to affirm God's provisions and love for me. I have to look at what has happened and remind myself, because if I don't, I'm going to forget, and that's just the nature of this world. And so my testimony is that God is not a one and done God. He does not provide once. He does not provide twice. He provides for us until there is only provision, and we are in heaven and having a great time and hanging out, So I've experienced absolute terrible days in my life, but God's provisions have made it possible for me to even be sitting here talking to you right now, and I even consider that an honor. So after being a 12-year-old proud atheist, I am now a Seventh-day Adventist Christian who absolutely adores God, and I put my foundation on Him, and that's the only thing I've found that doesn't shake, even when everything else does. Hey guys, that was my story. I hope some part of it spoke to you, or maybe every part of it spoke to you. That's the goal. If you want to give your own story, come reach out to Campus Ministries, and you too will be able to sit in this chair with these bright lights in your face and be absolutely vulnerable.
I love it.